Let's see if that works. Yeah, that did. No model anymore. The stream was crashing. I wonder if Wallpaper Engine's causing it or something. Because that's the only thing I can think of that's been just consistent across all times the error has occurred. Anyways, we're back. He wasn't impressed by my choice of actions. It just hit me. I had no idea how much time had passed between the crash and me meeting with Chiemi. I'll go see it. He's working the field. It's to get him to take leave. Let the boy help. You never change. What's going on here? We were joined by a new inhabitant. Chiemi, who's that guy? So he was the one I saw in the field. He was really big up close. All that field work was good for his muscles, clearly. And from what I could tell, he was in his 30s. As Chiemi introduced me, told him my situation, I found out his name. That must have been hard. So, old man. Taiba-chan. Wait a bit and I'll help the guy. I always spread stuff out in the fields. So we'll mow the grass at noon. What a good boy. No big deal. You'll think nothing happened. Good to hear. What is it? Yasumizu ain't a good place. The place isn't good, not my presence here. We don't like outsiders here. Should let sleeping dogs lie. You should hurry up and leave. That's the plan. So it's settled. Yep, thank you. I was beginning to understand how things worked here. Although Kanzo's voice was the most powerful here, it was also important to get Taison's approval. Kanzo was probably in charge of tackling the settlement's practical problems, while Taison provided spiritual and moral direction. When it was time to be civilized, Takumi-san came and convinced Taison, acting as an intermediary. It looked like Takumi-san himself understood such subtleties, and Chiemi seemed to rely on this side of him. Here you go. The lady brought some tea to the old folk. Perfect timing. Ah, Kaori-san. Looking forward to getting some food. So that was her name. I'll make a lot. It'll be a reward for waking up early and working hard. I'm doing it for Yasumizu, Ba-chan, and you. It's nothing, really.
まあ
Oh my. These two sure seem to get along. They looked about the same age too.
お客さんもご飯にされます？
Would you like something to eat too?
あ、いえ。
No, thank you. I already ate.
それじゃあお茶をどうぞ。おにぎりでもお出ししましょう。
Well, here's some tea, and I can get you a light snack. What would you say to some onigiri?
あ、それは。
ごめんなさい。ちょっと急ぎで電話借りていいかな、香織さん。
Sorry, Kaori-san. We need to borrow the phone real quick. Oh,
それはいいけど。
why not have some tea first?
ありがとう。でも
It's urgent.
急だから。
Let's go.
うん。
It didn't look like I could say no. We went up the nearby stairs to what seemed to be a living space. At the end of the creaky hallway, there was a black rotary phone, a rarity in this day and age.
これがここ、安水唯一の電話だから。
This is the only phone in Yasumizu, by the way. Seriously.
ちなみに、携帯電
Not a single mobile service provider works in this area.
そうなのか。でもどこに電話しろって？
Wait, who do you want me to call?
ロードサービスとか保険とか、あと必要なら家族にも連絡。
Road service, insurance, family if you have to. I should have been the one to say that.
さっきも言ったけど、できるだけ
Like I said, it's best if you left as soon as possible, so you should use everything you have,
そのものが歓迎されない場所だから？
because outsiders aren't welcome here.
そういうことです。
Yep,
それ以上の詮索は無用と。
I shouldn't pry any further, huh?
ね、
You catch on quickly.
とっても
That's good.
ただ、好奇心もとっても
But you also seem really curious.
バレたか。
It shows, huh?
バレますとも。でも正直、あんまりいろいろ首突っ込まない方がいいかも。
Though you should avoid sticking your nose into things.
どうせすぐに別れるんだし。
We'll part ways soon anyway.
その通り。
Exactly.
なんだか寂しいな。
That's kinda sad.
ちえみちゃんのメアド御所も？
Do you want my contact info?
くれるならぜひ。
If you're willing to give it to me.
やったー。これで男友達53人
You're number 53 on the list.
ガタ落ちですわ。
Well, that ain't a letdown. We still went on to exchange our info. I could only hope that being number 53 wasn't as big a problem as it sounded.
それはともかく、個人的興味で言えば、何が問題になってて、どんな背景があるのか知りたいのだけど。
I'd like to know the reason why me being here is such a big deal.
おすすめしないな。
I don't recommend it.
なぜかな。
Why?
私が不愉快になるから。
あんまり故郷が好きじゃない。
You don't like it here?
うん。正直、嫌い。
Excuse me. 'Alright, I'm back.
ここの人とは仲良さそうに見えるけど。
You seem to get along with people, though.
ああ、それは見えるだけですね。私相当の問題児だったんで、ご年配方とは結構気まずいよ。
That's just how it looks. I was a huge problem child, so I feel awkward around the older folk here.
それに、パッと
And
見
there's tons of thし things you can't see right away.
ま
Now,
あ
what I can't say,
自体はそんなに嫌いじゃないけどね。
I actually hate the people here. With that, I decided to stop prying about this place. I'd back away before she came to hate me.
あ、でも一つだけ聞いていい？
Can I ask one thing, though?
いい度胸。何か
Go ahead.
室匠さんのこと好きだったりする？
Do you like Takumi?
私が
Like him? Me?
うん。
Yeah.
さすがにそれはないな。匠兄ちゃんかっこいいけど、ごつすぎるし、10以上年違うし、対象外です。
Takumi's cool and all, but he's too rugged and over a decade older than me. He's out of my strike zone.
それに、匠兄ちゃんは昔から香織さん一筋だし。
And he's always had eyes for Kaori-san.
やっぱそうなんだ。結婚してるわけじゃないの？
Felt like it. Are they married or something?
うん。香織さん未亡人だから。
Kaori's a widow. That seems complicated. That aside, Chimmy had been acting a bit strange. Why had she dragged me away from tea? It seemed so awkward, too. Assuming she hadn't been jealous of Kaori-san and simply didn't want her to charm me, it would mean that she just hadn't wanted me to drink the tea. Why? Also, why'd she feed me a cup of ramen if I could have just gotten food at the dining hall? Looking too deep into things was part of my nature, though things were never as bad as I assumed. I went on to call my insurance company. I found out something. Apparently, this village was hundreds of kilometers away from the nearest service station, meaning I was ineligible for the normal service and had to pay extra. And the extra was over 100,000 yen. Also, I could have avoided this if I had had a more expensive plan. This was all my own fault for not taking the bike salesman advice. Shit. Better call Luigi. That's a bad joke. I said I would consider it and hung up. Then I went back to the dining hall.
あれ、おじいさんたちは。
Where did everyone go? The customers had changed completely. Tai-san, Kanzo-san, and Takumi-san were all gone now. They were replaced by a caricature of a juvenile delinquent. Who the fuck are you? He shouted at me. He seemed like he was trying too hard. Then slammed his bowl and chopsticks on the table and stood up to intimidate me.
夫妻師春明です。
あ？んだよ、舐めてんのか。
You wanna go?
まあ、義継。初対面の方になんて口の利き方を。
Yoshitiku. Don't talk like that to someone you just met.
ババア。おい、チェネ。そいつ誰だよ。
Who's this asshole?
バイクで事故った旅行者の春明さん。
A traveler who crashed his bike. That introduction was half-assed.
改めてこちら織部香織さんと次男の義継
This is Kaori Oribe.
君が長男ね。
This is Oribe and her second son, Yoshitiku. Yasunaga's the first.
安永くんって朝の彼？
The guy you introduced me to this morning?
そうよく見たら似てるでしょ。
Yep, they may not look like it. They're alike, don't you think? What an interesting family.
兄貴のこと言ってんじゃねえよ。うぜんだよ、ぶっちゃ。
Stop talking about my brother, Punto.
そう言われてもな。モテちゃうからな、ちえ姉ちゃん。
Call me that again. Call me that all you want. I'm pretty confident in my looks and popularity.
とっとと町へ戻っちまえ、バカ女。バカバカバカ。
Back!
どうしよう、春明さん。バカは否定できないかも。
Oh no. Haraki-san. I don't think I can argue with that.
なんと、ちえみちゃんはバカだったのか。よーし、バカバカ。
Alright then.
ひどい。
How mean.
やろうぜ、よしつぐくん。バカバカ。
What the hell? Don't talk shit about her. You're pretty conflicted, aren't you? Oh my gosh, this guy's a fruitcake.
ごめん、ちえみちゃん。本心じゃないんだ。
Sorry, Chami-chan. I was just playing.
見事な連続手のひら返し。このちえみをあっけに取られさせるとはなかなかやらない。
One nice reversal after another. It takes quite a man to surprise me.
ちえみちゃんには負けないぜ。
I just don't want to lose you. To you, that's all.
付き合ってんのか、てめえら。
Are you two dating or something? Boy, I wish.
いい加減になさい、義継。とうに遅刻でしょ。
You're already late. Go to school. Stop being a punk.
うるせえ行かねえよ
Ikaneo. I'm not going. Mumbling something, the kid walked out of the dining hall, leaving his half-full bowl behind.
なさいね。お恥ずかしいところを。
Gomenasai. That was very embarrassing.
根は素直ないい子なんですけどね。
He's good deep down. I could see that somewhat.
ところで牧島さんとムロさんは
Where's Maxima and Mural-san?
あ、もうバイク拾いにで。
まあ
They went to pick up your
追
bike.
いかけないと
Well, I gotta hurry after them.
場所は分かってるみたいだったし、大丈夫じゃない？
They know where it is. They'll be fine.
いや一応ニュートラルにすれば押せるけどさ操作わかるのかな
Well, you have to set it in neutral and push. I'm not sure they'll know how.
さすがに手伝うべきでしょ
Not of all people should help.
非効率になっちゃまずいし
They might go about it the wrong way.
この程度なら手出しはやめときましょう。
If that's all, you shouldn't bother.
取りも直さず、春明さんがよそ者だからです。
You're an outsider, and when it suggests spending too much time with them,
問題になりそうな人たちには思えなかったけど
they didn't seem that bad to me.
そりゃ二人とも大人だ
That's because they're adults.
基本的にこのチー
Don't
ム
assume everyone here is as welcoming as me.
からね。
I'm an exception.
春明さんは平気かもだけど、
You might get along fine,
向こうがストレスため
but you might also set them off.
ただ
This place is already far from normal. Don't risk making it worse.
まあ、そうね。任せろと言われたら
She is right.
手出しをしない。
They insisted you leave it to them. So that's what you should do.
そうなんです
ええ、
Think so too?
休みずには休みずのやり方が
The men here are pretty The men here are pretty serious about Yasumizu having its own way of doing things. I could somewhat understand that. A visitor should behave like one. Doing anything more would be uncalled for. It was an old-fashioned way of thinking, but it was an old-fashioned kind of place for sure.
じゃあどこで待とうか
Where do we wait then?
うちに戻って待ちましょう。
At my place. Still, I expected as much, but I was still curious. Normally, you'd expect we'd sit around and drink some tea right here. Why not? As we waited, she told me several things. First, that the people in Yasumizu were a bit on edge right now. The reason for that was the fact that, excluding me, they had 3 outsiders here. As I'd assumed this myself from what I knew. But apparently yesterday morning, a little girl was found straying around the Saranaga Rapids. They couldn't find out her name, let alone who her parents were, so they didn't know how to handle her. For now, one of the inhabitants was looking after her. I'd been told the more superstitious inhabitants, mostly Tyson, saw her as a bad omen. I suggested leaving her to the police, but Chiemi didn't seem to think it was a good idea. It didn't make sense to me. But if I were to believe her, things around here were such that not even the cops could do anything. Apparently, the other 2 outsiders were journalists gathering info for a magazine article. Unlike the little girl, they'd come here through the normal route. Through Kami Fujiyoshi. And therefore, they weren't considered a bad omen. Still, even normal outsiders put the people here on edge. Through this talk, I also got some details about the area itself. Yasumizu was a settlement, part of an autonomous region called Fujiyoshi. It had also been on the map I'd seen at the store. Fujiyoshi was split into two regions, Yasumizu and Kami Fujiyoshi. They were separated by a mountain. Going to Kami Fujiyoshi took about an hour by foot or 20 minutes by car on the winding paved road. Side note, the school the students went to was in Kami Fujiyoshi. The two settlements had ties so strong they shared customs and culture. Chiemi said the local seasonal events were quite unconventional. I asked her to elaborate, but all she would say is that Yasumizu had special meaning to Fujiyoshi. She was making me more suspicious than I wanted to be. This conversation wasn't nearly as excited as the one we had last night. Well, at least I found out she didn't have a boyfriend right now. Very intriguing. Alright. I'm gonna go grab some water. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. It was nearly noon when Takumi-san came back, ending my waiting game. The door was fully open the entire time we waited. It was probably Chami's way of saying that nothing bad was happening here.
バイクってのはおめえもんだな、おやっさん。
Bikes sure are heavy, eh?
去年取った獅子ほどじゃねえ。
Ain't as heavy as the boar I caught last year. I really didn't expect him to just carry it here. Like, sure, there were two of them, but how do you haul 200 kilograms so easily? The unpaved road and the river made my ride pretty muddy.
どうやってあの崖を上げたんです？
How'd you bring it up the cliff?
たまに下から物を引き上げなきゃなんねえから。
There's a pulley. We bring things up every now and then.
おい、匠。
と余計なこと言う場合じゃね
Now's not the time for that.
え。なのかだいぶ水に浸かっちまったみてえだけど。
Is this thing alright? It looks pretty wet.
じゃあ
I'll check.
任すぜ。おやっさん、結構かかっちまったから、研ぎ直しは明日まで待ってもらえっか。
Alright. Since this took longer than I thought it would it be fine if we do the sharpening tomorrow? Yes. I thanked them as they left. Now,
手伝おうか。
とりあえず
I'll see what I can do by myself first. The worst part of the repairs was right at the beginning. I wanted to start by washing, but the old lady was really mad at me. She didn't want any of the Saranaga mud on the ground because it was corrupt. But the plaza was the only place with easy access to water. So I did my best and convinced her to let me wash it off as close to the edge as possible. Once it was clean, I could start checking what was wrong with it. It actually looked pretty good. Bent in places for sure, but the wash got rid of the bad sounds the wheels made. The only problems with that was that both tires were flat, and it was a pretty big one.
道具とか普通
No.
バイク旅行とかって持ってくるもんじゃない。
Aren't you supposed to bring tools on a bike
い
trip?
ざとなればロードサービス呼べばいいかな。
I just thought I could call road service if I needed them.
準備。
VGMP.
いや
I have no excuses, honestly.
正
I
直
was having a moment
だから冷静でも
when I went out. I didn't think things through.
事情を聞いてほしそう。
What happened?
彼女に振られたんだよ。
My girlfriend left me.
嘘っぽいな。
That seems like a lie. It
それ
wasn't.
はともかく。ん。
In any case,
道具か。
where would we get tools to fix a flat tire?
野里屋敷ならあるかもしれないな。
There might be some at the Nasato Mansion.
野里屋敷。
うん。
It's the biggest place in Yasumizu.
お家
If you can't find something there, you won't find it anywhere else in the village.
なるほど。じゃあそこの人にお願いしに行こう。
Let's give it a shot.
実
Hmm.
はあんまり会うのはおすすめできない。
I don't recommend meeting the guy, but I can't think of any other ideas.
また偉い人が登場。
Someone important again?
その上ちょっと人格的にね。
He's kind of messed up to boot. And so we walked up the hill and arrived at the Nosato Mansion. From what I could tell, it was located at the highest point in the settlement. And like Shami said, it was definitely a hell of a building. It had elegant Western design, which would probably look even better if the place were better maintained. The yard was overgrown, and the building itself was pretty much buried in ivy and small trees. If someone told me it was cursed, I'd instantly believe them. I didn't think anyone actually lived here.
インターホン生きてるかな。
I wonder if the intercom works. She pressed a button next to the aged iron gate. Yasumizu was a quiet place, so I could easily hear the bell ring inside.
もう一度押そうか。
Should we try again?
やめとこ。何度も鳴らすと心身悪いから
Let's not piss him off.
そんなに気難しい人なの？
Moody guy?
そうね。気難しい。
That's pretty accurate.
いい表現だ。
I wasn't sure what she meant by that, but I opted to just wait rather than ask more questions. Soon enough, the person in question walked out of the mansion.
誰だ？
He wasn't young, but he didn't look middle-aged either. He certainly looked high-strung.
どうも野里さん、芹沢です。
It's Serizawa.
知っている。芹沢千恵美。そっちの青年は存じ上げないがね。
I know you, Serizawa Chiemi. I'm asking about the young man with you.
春明さん、こちら野里清之助さん。清之助さん、事故車の夫妻師春明さんです。
This is Haraki-san. He got into an accident. That was the briefest introduction yet.
は？なんだ？
I really like how our introduction of us just shortens and shortens and shortens over time. It's really funny. What? I explained the situation again. He furrowed his brow when I mentioned the Serenaga.
というわけで
So, I need repair tools to get out of here as soon as possible.
タイヤはチューブですかね。
Are the tires tubeless?
一応パッチもあり。
I have patches,
チューブタイヤだ
but I
素人には難しいんじゃないのか？できるならいいがね。
but fixing tubeless tires would be a bit too much for an amateur. There's no problem if you aren't an amateur.
チューブがバーストしてたら
But if the tube burst,
会話
you have no choice but to change it. I don't have any spares. And I wouldn't give them if I did.
すみません。
ちょっと話にならんね。おとなしく何十万だかの勉強料を払って拾ってもらうのをおすすめしよう。
How I recommend spending however many thousands you need to have the repairman come and pick you up. I had no retort to that.
野里さん、多分ですけど、今
We can't have any more outsiders come here right now.
は？君は間違いりだろう。未だにそんなもの信じてるのかね？
Don't tell me you still believe that nonsense.
私はともかく、じいさまばあさま方がちょっと。
I'd be fine with it, but I doubt the elders would be. We've had too many visitors these past few days.
安水の連中の事情は知らんよ。私にどう
I don't care what you Yasumizu peasants think. What do you expect me to do anyways? Fix the tires myself and get the oil all over me?
いや、そこまでなくても、藤吉の長者として困ってるマロードを助けるのにお力添えをいただけないかと。
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that the head of the village should help a troubled villager.
困った時だけ長者を頼るのではなく、安水流のもてなしでもしたらどうかね。崖から突き落とすんだったか？
Instead of coming to me when it's convenient, you should give him the traditional Yasumizu welcome and throw him off the cliff.
いや、そんな言っちゃダメですよ。
Come on, you can't say that. Her tone was slightly off. I could feel irritation behind her
本
words.
当お恥ずかしい限りなんですが、
I know it might be a bother, but can you at least lend me the tools?
道具やらキット
I'll just borrow them. You won't hear or see me work. I can even pay.
構わんがね。下手に物を破損させたりしたら弁償してもらうぞ。学生だか知らんが。
Well, I want compensation for anything you break. Student or not, I'll have you act proper. He pointed me to the garage and walked back to the mansion.
いやー、なんとか
I thought we were screwed.
チューブがバーストってなんだろ
The hell's a burst tube?
春明さん、かっこ悪。
That's so lame.
う。バイク乗りならスパナ一本で何でも修理
Do you
して
think every biker can fix a bike by bashing it with a wrench or something?
まあ、わかりませんけど、なんかそういうメカに強い感じ。
Hmm.
だし
I don't know, but there are a lot of girls who are into guys that are good with cars and
じゃ
stuff.
あ野里氏にはグッときたと。
Oh, so you're into Nasato?
いやー、どうせ
No, he's acting like he's smart.
多分
Probably never repaired a thing in his life.
筋が
He's not nearly as experienced as he'd want you to believe.
じゃあなぜバイクの整備用品
Then
に
why does he have bike repair stuff?
野里屋敷は上富士吉にある野里家のもっと大きいお屋敷から
Well,
いらないものを運んで
this mansion is the Yasumizu branch of the Nasato family. Their main mansion is in Kamifujiyoshi. Whatever they don't need, they send over here.
56年前に清之助さんが単車買ってもらったけどろくに乗りこなせなくてお蔵入りにしたとか聞いたことある。
Kiyonosuke was given a car 5 or 6 years ago. Couldn't drive it, so it's been gathering dust ever since. That's the countryside for you. Couldn't hide your shame if your life depended on it. Anyway, now I knew what the man meant. Now I knew the man was the condescending, pretentious type. He still helped me out, though. And that it was true that I didn't know much about repairs, so I couldn't get really mad.
さそうと決まれば使えそうなものは全部持ち出してやろうぜ。
Let's take everything that looks like it could be useful.
さながら山賊のごとく
Like bandits, I'm in.
私邪魔じゃないかな。
Are you sure I'm not bothering you?
いや適当に話してないと気がめいるんで合図打
Man
ってくれるだけでも助かる。
Just chatting helps me. The instructions that came with the repair kit told me that my bike's tires were rather a difficult type to repair. Apparently, I had to remove the tires. But where did I even start with that? Well, as long as I didn't break it. Nothing I did could be worse than having to call road service down here. So I tried taking it apart. But as I removed the nuts, I made the situation even worse than it was. Yeah, this really wasn't a job for an amateur.
さん大変そうね。
なんか大元になってんな。機械っつうのはやっぱダメだな。
And machines are just no good.
まあ壊れさえしなきゃ文明の利器は便利だけどね。
The benefits of culture are great as long as they don't break.
日暮れまでに治りそうかい？
I hate this. I don't like the way that they cut off all their words. Because, like, if they're trying to imply something, the way you do that is instead of thinking he can fix that before... Think he can fix that before sundown? No, you don't do that. You do... Reckon he can fix it before sundown? You know, you do that.
厳しいかも。最悪なんとかするから安心して。
Worst comes to worst, I'll do something. I really appreciated how she handled the visitors in my stead.
なあ知恵ねバイクって免許簡単に取れんの
Chie, is it hard to get a bike license?
どうだろう。原付なら簡単よ。私も。
Scooter licenses are easy. I have one myself.
中型大型の二輪は結構めんどいよ。普通免許取るのと同じ学科講習もあるし。
We gotta take a course.
なのかい
It's just like with cars. Do you like bikes?
関係ねえだろちなみにそれいくらすんだよ
How much was that
これ
anyways?
は新車で80万くらいかな。
800,000 brand new?
たっけはたっけバカどうやって
まあバイトとか頑張って
I worked for my money.
そんな新車が事故ってなんて。春脇さん、気の毒。
And then you got into an accident. Poor Haruki-san.
ちえみ先生さっきから気にはなってたんだけど
What happened to my share of the food?
先生思わず全部。
I ate it all.
春脇さん気の毒。
I'm sorry. As I told her off for not leaving me any food, I somehow removed the tires. I can only hope to be able to fix this up. I had this thing for less than a month, but the trouble it was putting me through made it feel somewhat dear to me. I wanted to fire it up again and make it go as fast as it could. Suddenly I heard the engine, and it felt like it was mocking me. Hold on, an engine here? I stopped and turned around to see an unfamiliar van drive to the plaza. Barring the classic looking piece of junk in Nosato's garage, this was the first time I'd seen a car here. As far as I knew, no one living here actually owned a car, so...
記者さんたちだね。
These are the journalists I told you about. Once the van stopped, a lady stepped out of it. She's pretty.
どうも。
今日もご迷惑をおかけします。
どうも。自己春明です。
My name is Bike Crash Haruaki desu.
そこまで自虐的になんなくても。
Don't be so hard on yourself. That was no time for an inside joke. I quickly introduced myself properly. I crashed not too far away from here, so I'm stuck for the time being.
なるほど。学生さんね。
I see, so you're a student.
災難だった。
Sorry about the trouble you're going through. Oh,
私はこういう。
this is me. The woman gave me your business card. Mamiya Hisako. A freelance writer. Her pen name was Jose Kyoko.
ちなみに読んだことない？宝生9個の記事。
Hosho Kyuko.
だよね。まだまだ。
I figured. I'm not a big name yet, and the magazines I do get printed in are marketed for housewives and the elderly.
それは難易度高いな。
That's some intense competition. What do you write anyway?
フードレビュー。変わった食品専門のね。
Food reviews. I specialize in unnatural dishes.
あれですか？世界で一番臭い缶詰とかそういう。
Like the foulest smelling canned food in the world or something?
そうそう。まあ
Well,
シュールなんて
your usual brand of weirdness doesn't attract much attention these days.
探し歩いて
So I'm looking for minor culinary oddities local to Japan.
そんなわけで。
Anyway, if you know any weird dishes from your hometown,
あったらぜひちょうだ
do
い。
tell me.
日本
I'd travel the length of Japan to give it a try.
ラボの後輩がキャンパス内で取ったキノコで豚汁作ったら集団幻覚が起きまして。
A student from the lab I frequented once made pork miso soup with the mushroom he found on campus. We had mass hallucinations and...
植物は却下ね。
No flashes of brilliance or poisons, please. As we chatted, I became curious.
そういえば取材の方は
By the way,
お二人とか
weren't the two of you...
もう一人いるわ。ちょっと降りてくるのに時間が。あ、来た来た。
Yep, I'm here with my partner. He just needs some time to... Oh, there he is. I looked at the van and became completely awestruck. It felt like the van had shed its skin or something, but that made no sense. But seriously, how did this guy fit in there? He was gargantuan. Takumi-san said something. Takumi-san was something. But this man was like a heavyweight wrestler. Though, unlike Takumi-san, this man was primarily fat rather than muscle. He walked out of the driver's seat, and the van shook wildly.
写真家の橋本雄大さんよ。こちらは私
Hashimoto-san is a photographer. He's way more famous than me.
オールラウンドでご活躍中で。
He works in all sorts of fields. I imagine you've seen some of his photos without even knowing it. I didn't know much about photography, but I was definitely convinced. There was a certain authority around him. He didn't say a word, but I could tell what he was thinking.
どうもはじめまして。久石春明です。
It's nice to meet you. Was he even alive? Oh, more. After a strange pause, he slowly bowed. Like the moving mountain he was, and greeted me with a voice like a titan. He seemed somewhat difficult to interact with.
今日で最終日でしたっけ？
This is your last day here, isn't it?
オリベさんが秘蔵の獅子慣れを開けてくださるってことなので。
Yep. Oribe-san said she'd let me try her prize Shishinare.
よその人に耐えられるかな。
I don't know if an outsider can handle it.
まあ、胃薬も持ってきてるから大丈夫でしょ。
I have my Pepto-Bismol. I'll be fine. So, Mamiya and Hashimoto walked off into the dining hall. Who would have thought such a beauty was a delicacy hunter? I had to admit, that gap was kind of charming. As intrigued as I was, I couldn't waste any more time. I had to fix my bike. Whoa. A lot of things had surprised me in Yasumizu, but not as much as this.
もしもし
Hello. No reaction. At first, he looked like a poor man, too senile to think or perceive properly.
何かご用ですか？
Do you need something from me? I made sure to speak as clearly as possible. It didn't look like he understood. I figured it was best to just ignore him and resume repairs, but... Good. I looked at him again. He was just standing there, like his soul and brain had left his body. Dun dun dun. A vacant stare, yellowed eyes, mouth half open, covered in saliva. Coming. He spoke again.
何が来るんです？
What's coming? Oh. His voice was too hoarse to make out.
何ですって？
Nandeste. I placed my hand against my ear. Finally understood what I wanted and prepared to whisper something. I brought my ear closer and... The wolf is coming! The sudden shout caught me completely off guard. It made me fall to the ground. He looked down at me, laughing. He clapped and opened his half-toothless mouth into a wide smile. The wolf god is coming! The wolf god is coming! He bent his body in a weird way and laughed. He was convulsing. Then he turned around and left. Oh no, I'm too late.
遅かったか。
何が
Late for what?
知らない人にはああやって説明するんだよ。
Gramps over there likes messing around with strangers.
あれ
Is he your grandpa?
いやいや、本名は知らないんだ。
No, most of us don't even know his name. He's lived in Yasumizu forever, and he's always been like that.
ボケてるというかちょっとおかしいのかあの人。
Well, honestly, it felt less like he was messing around and more like, God touched him a little too hard, you know?
みんな狼じじいって呼んでるけどね。
Everyone calls him the man who cried the wolf god. Named after the boy who cried wolf, I assume. Not as catchy, though.
狼ね
Wolf gods, huh? As far as I knew, there were no wild wolves in Japan. There used to be, but after the last sighting in either Meiji or Showa era, they've been considered extinct here. The modern image of wolves comes from Western fairy tales and the like. It wasn't linked to anything in our culture or our life. The Boy Who Cried Wolf was a Western tale. Did this brand of insanity make him repeat the tale or something? A bit weirded out by the circumstances, I went back to repairing my bike. After a bit more time, I somehow took off the rubber from the tires and removed the tubes. Both tires were pierced by some really rusty nail. Fuck. This kind of stuff only happened at the worst of times. I applied the patches and filled them with air using a manual pump. I wet the tubes. There were no bubble, meaning no air was leaving them. Things were looking good. After the high schoolers came back and passed by, no one else stopped to talk. Shammy was looking a bit bored now. I think I got it.
嘘、あんなにダメっぽかったのに。
But it all seems so hopeless.
悪かったね。まあ、
Well, sorry.
組み立て直すって大仕事が残ってるけど。
Though, I still need to rebuild this. That's going to be a lot of work.
それが終わったら出発できそう？
And you'll be able to leave then?
長居するとまずそうなのはよくわかったし。
Yeah. Believe me, I know I shouldn't stay here long. I can take a hint.
そう。よ
That's great. She didn't even seem to care that much. Guess I had no chance with her, huh?
何時間もコンを詰めっぱなしでしょ？大丈夫？疲れてない？
You've been at this for hours. How are you holding up? Do you need a break or anything?
昼食休憩の機会が誰かさんに奪われたこともある
Well, I'd be better if someone didn't take my lunch away from me.
代わりにクラッカーをあげたじゃないですか。
I gave you some crackers, didn't I? Like that was enough for me.
まあ、僕
I'm fine. I'll push forward a little more. You can go if you want. I think I've been introduced to just about everyone here.
多分あと2人会ってない人がいるかな。
There's 2 people you haven't met yet. Well, there was no real need to, right?
もうちょっといるよ。どうせ暇だから帰ってきたわけだし。する
I'll stay around a bit longer. I came back here because I was bored. And it's not like I'm busy.
52人の男友達と遊ぶ選択肢はなかったの
Couldn't you play around with your 52 guy friends?
電源撤回。
I take it back. I came here because I was...
52人からのメール攻めとかさ。
I came back here because I wanted to be bored. Living in the city is annoying and tiring, especially with 52 guys texting you all the time.
ごめん。50
Sorry, I lied about the 52 guys.
春秋さんに
Because I wanted to keep you in check, I guess. Why would she pull that tactic only to reveal her hand?
ねえ、彼女に振られたって本当？
Hey, did you really get dumped by your girlfriend?
本当だって
I did, honest.
そっ
I
か。
see. After that relentless assault, it wouldn't be fair unless I played my own card.
え？
Want to come with me?
二人乗りなんだ。
It's 2-seater? Yeah. There's even an extra helmet. It's not dry yet, though.
僕はこのままここを出て
I'm obviously leaving soon, so unless you have something planned, you can join me.
ついでにロング
We can even go on a bike tour if we have enough time.
さえあれば
I can take you anywhere. Flexible, open to fine-tuning, wild, and charming. That was a good date invitation if I said so myself.
いいね。素敵。都合。問題
That sounds great. And I have no plans.
じゃあ、荷物まとめ。
I'll go get my stuff then. She smiled and turned around to head to her place. She then looked back at me and,
急いだ方がいいよ。
you should hurry before I change my mind.
はいはいもちろん
That made me motivated. This was one tiring trip, but at least I met someone good along the way. I'd just forget everything I didn't want to remember while on the road with her. I can only hope that a clever girl would eventually grow closer, and I would eventually grow closer. With that ulterior motive in mind, I resumed rebuilding the bike. After several failed attempts, I was finally making good progress putting the bike back together. Afternoon had passed, and it was almost evening. At the rate I was going, I'd definitely be working for a while. It was dark. Would that even be possible? It might be way past midnight by the time I was done. Shammy might dump me for that, man. Life sure was hard. The plaza I'd worked at was now totally empty. There's no one around me. All I could hear was the wind and the frogs and the tools in my hand. It was desolate, to say the least. I suddenly felt really weak. It made me keenly aware of being in a place I didn't belong and that I was trying to escape. It was an oppressive atmosphere, like the bars of a cage that were slowly swinging shut. You think you're gonna get attacked or something? I tried to laugh it off, but it didn't work. As I became more conscious of my surroundings, I began to hear things I hadn't noticed before. I heard a voice. Someone was singing. It was an inarticulate little girl's voice. I stopped my work. Before I knew it, I'd put my tools down and gone looking for the source. Was I that starved for human presence? Or did the malaise make me feel like I was in danger? I walked down the hill to where the song was coming from. Passing the tall grass, I arrived.
しんないさんのお守りは
It was a strange sight. The field was covered in tall grass. There were countless rocks peeking out of it. Unlike the boulders all over Yasumizu, these were only up to my waist. They looked like gravestones.
いついつクジラも斜めに走る
The field extended into the dusky western sky before ending at a cliff. It was the lowest spot in Yasumizu, the border to the Saranaga. There's a large pine right at the edge.
嵐を見と毛が生えり
The evening sun, the stones, and the pine's shadow gave the field a strange aura. A little girl was running through it. Her steps were awkward. At this moment, this space was alien. I felt like I was looking at a Giorgio de Chirico painting. The place felt like it didn't belong in this world. Suddenly, I came to understand why this place was special. It was a sacred, mystical ground where no outsiders were welcome.
大丈夫?
Girl fell. Are you okay? I run with no hesitation to the little girl. I help up the half-crying little girl This is confusing, and it feels like they're just trying to be creative in like the text. There was a new graze on her band-aid covered kneecap. I console the little girl. And someone appears. Girl saw once me.
夕霧立てば
Prepare for the feast when the evening mists arrive. Girl, weave incomprehensible phrase. Hide behind little girl, fear and hostility, eyes.
逃げて
Run. Girl, hug little girl, warm me.
間に合わない
You probably won't make it.
でも逃げて
Me, girl, behind. Me, girl, behind. Mist. Mist, mist. Me, girl, behind. Mist, mist. Mist, mist. Mist. Me, girl, behind. Mist. Mist. Turn around. Run. Where? In a daze, I come back to the plaza. Suddenly, Chiemi shook me, bringing me back to my senses. Where were you?
すぐ作業に
Sorry, I'll finish the job now.
何言ってるのもうダメ間に合わない春明さんも隠れて
You idiot. It's too late. You won't make it in time. You've got to hide. I couldn't understand what she was getting at.
変だチエミとっと
でも春明さんが
ほっとけそんなよそ者俺はおやっさんと
Forget the outsider.
絶対戻れよ
Kanto and I will check the other places. Stop wasting time and go back to yours. I couldn't understand. What were these two doing? What scared them so much? It didn't take me long to find out. I looked down from the hill. From Saranaga, beyond the field I'd just been in, it came a rising haze. So dense you could easily call it mist. It moved strangely like a living creature as it flowed into the plaza.
春明さんこっち
Chiemi pulled me by the hand.
なんだか
My head feels like it weighs a ton.
我慢して
Gotta find a place you can lock the doors. You'll die if you don't.
どういうことなの
お願い春明さん今だけは言うことを聞いて
Please don't ask questions and do as I say this once. Hesitantly it is, she said. We ran up the hill and crossed the rice path field until we made it to an outhouse.
ここならなんとか
This should be fine.
本当
Seriously, what's going on?
確かにすごい霧だけど
This is a hell of a mist, but this won't protect me, right?
いい春明さん詳しく説明してる時間はないだから
Please just do what I say,
今から言うことを
and only what I say.
今から人が
Get in there, lock yourself in, and stay the whole night. Don't make a sound. My mind was clear by this point, so I began to wonder why it was clouded until now. Because of that, I could understand exactly what Chiemi said, despite how weird it was. I could also see she was really desperate. Hide in the outhouse. That's a hell of an order.
言っとくけど
Just so you know,
無茶ぶりだからね
pulling that off is pretty hard.
クリアの暁には
When I do, I like a good word and an explanation. I'll tell you everything,
だから
so please survive the night.
生き延びて
The words and the teary smile, none of it seemed fake.
じゃあね
See you then.
君も
You
急ぐ
gotta hurry, right?
それじゃ
何
明日言うから
I'll tell you tomorrow. Leaving me with one hell of a homework assignment. Chiemi ran off. The plaza was covered in the mist by now. I could see it rising to take over the fields, too. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Anyway, a promise was a promise. Ten minutes later, I began to wonder what I was doing. Was I really supposed to spend the night here? This outhouse wasn't like a prefab. You couldn't find... This outhouse wasn't like a prefab you could find in a construction site. It was a shack built by hand, merely happened to have a toilet unit installed. It was Japanese style, so I couldn't even sit down. All I could do was stand. It was the type of toilet that had to be periodically pumped empty, so the smell was really bad. There was a cover on the unit, but without any kind of freshener, the ammonia could only do so much. The only good thing about it being here is that if I had to go to the toilet, mission complete. But what of it? Was I really supposed to spend all night here? He's talking about an ammonia smell. This is something I know about. That's a kind of toilet you're not supposed to pee in. Because, those are dug out, and if you pee in them, it, prevents the other waste from decomposing because of the chemicals in urine. It's a true fact. It's a whole thing. When I went to Philmont, it was a very big deal because they have... Well, it's the way it's set up. It's not a flaw. It's just how nature works. It's just you have this giant pit, and the idea is you've dug it out. You're gonna fill it back in later. So you just say like, hey, if you gotta go number one, just use the bushes. If you gotta go number two, just use the Red Roof Inn. That's how it was at Philmont. Now, if it's like a plumbed toilet, if it has plumbing, then it doesn't matter. But for these like outdoor types, it's a really big deal. Because they try to like cycle the same areas over and over again. And so any like alteration in decomposition rates really affects it. It's a very odd thing to learn about, but it's very fascinating too. It's like, oh, so that's how this place is run, because you have to move these giant outhouse things every few months. That's interesting. The question quickly made me realize how stupid this was, and I began making assumptions to make this easier for myself. I was being pranked. Everyone was just crazy. Hell, the mist had already filled the surroundings. There was no way the outhouse protected me from the mist. The air in here was already misty and damp. The temperature was so low, I could still bear it, but staying the night would make me all wet. Again, it wasn't safe from the mist here. That considered, I'd probably be better off sleeping in the grass outside than staying here. The reasonable part of my mind urged me to stop playing along with these hicks. However,
今から一晩。いいよ。全部話す。だから、今晩を生き延びて。
my sense of duty made it hard for me to break the promise I'd made to her. actually, that wasn't quite true. I was more intrigued by the prospect of learning more about this place. Anyway, I took the time to compile what I'd found out today. The Yasumizu settlement was a part of Fujiyoshi. It was situated next to the Saranaga Rapids. People living here were Chimi, Oribe, his family Kari and Yoshigu, Kamoshida, Haru, her granddad Kanzo, Yamawaki, Takumi, Nosato. It seemed like he was from Kami Fujiyoshi, the place on the other side of the mountain. For some reason lived here now. Finally, the old man who cried, Wolf Kami. Those were the 11 people I met. Jamie said I had 2 more left. That could only mean the 2 that I met by the pine. The little girl, the lost child that had strayed into Saranaga yesterday, and the fantastical white-haired woman clad in strange clothing. She was probably the one I'd seen in the morning. In fact, I'd seen her twice, which made it more likely that she was indeed real, with how mysterious this place was. I couldn't rule out the possibility that she was an illusion, though. According to Chiemi, the little girl was looked after by someone in the village, so I can only assume it was the white-haired woman. If I counted the little girl, that would mean Yasumizu had 13 inhabitants. Then, there were the 2 journalists. Mamiya and Hashimoto. Add me to that, you had a total of 3 outsiders. But I'd put that aside for now. Anyway, time for an assessment. Yesterday morning, a little girl strayed into Saranaga. To make it worse, no one, not even herself, knew anything about her. She instantly got branded as an ill omen. Next, Chiemi, who was in Saranaga for some reason, found me there, recognized me as a proper lost person, but since I came through Saranaga, I was also branded as an ill omen. From what Kinosuke and Nasato said, it was safe to assume that it used to be customary to throw people like us into Saranaga. And then there was the mist. The girl said something mysterious. Prepare for the feast when the evening mists arrive. I can only assume it was related to the same superstitions. After all, the mist came from Saranaga itself, and the river seemed to be central to the local customs and ideas. With that in mind, how was it dangerous? What was going to happen now? Yomibito, as in people from Yomi, the ancient Japanese land of the dead. Dead people come back through Saranaga, and they were corrupted. That gave room for some wild ideas. Was there some sort of pathogen in Saranaga that rose up with the mists? Did it turn people into zombies? Was I about to be part of a Japanese Resident Evil? Wait, that was already Japanese. What if you had a 10% chance to be infected by the mists, but 100% chance to be infected by another person? That would explain why everyone had to isolate themselves like this. I'd become a zombie, and I probably wouldn't have the mind to unlock the door. Basically, by locking myself in here, I was quarantining myself. I hadn't put all that much thought into it, but that seemed like a good story. Sure, stuff like the boulders and the wolves didn't fit into this thing anywhere. But my brain was doing some real interesting work here. Then again, this was Hicksville. And they're very superstitious around here. There aren't really many superstitions science can't explain in the modern world. It seems so weird.
今から一晩ここに入って鍵をかけて絶対に物音一つ立てないで。
Don't make a sound. To be frank, the reason I spent so much time on these delusions was because I was scared of things I didn't know or understand. In the past, people used to attribute stuff like this to natural phenomenon. People used to attribute natural occurrences like diseases to gods, devils, yokai, and do nothing but fear them. They were scared, these manifestations of monsters and everything. But on the other hand, it was better than not seeing or knowing what they really were. In fact, you could die to things you couldn't see or understand. The fact that you could die to things you couldn't see or understand made life unreasonable and unfair. That's why it was logical to give these things names and mental images in order to recognize and memorize them. My fear of things, I didn't know was the same, except I wasn't just satisfied with labels or hypotheses. I needed to reach the truth. That aside, what I was feeling right now wasn't a fear of the unknown. It was a realistic, practical fear of something that could endanger my life.
今から一晩ここに入って鍵をかけて絶対に物音一つ立てないで。
That meant outside lurked something dangerous that could hear sounds. Perhaps it was the so-called dead that rose up from the river. Or maybe, assuming I was right, with my Saranaga sickness, it was people who came out and beat the shit out of all the diseased who didn't follow the rules. The wolf is coming. Maybe the wolf is the title given to the killer. Suddenly, I heard a scream in the distance. What do you mean I can't not look? Wow. That was some timing. Right as I was about to form a new hypothesis, the proof connecting it all suddenly came to me. I was right outside. It had gotten really dark. There were no lights anywhere. Darkness was fear. Unperceived, unknown, dangerous, and scary. Leaving this place was dangerous and scary. Scary things were scary, no matter how much logic you applied to them. But I couldn't discard my desire to get to know the truth. I opened the door and stopped in place. Night wasn't absolute darkness. No matter how cloudy the sky was, there was always a little bit of light. However, I came to understand that it could be hard to see even if there was light. Everything I saw was covered by dense mist. Combined with the pale moonlight, it made the area seem milky. Made it hard to get around. Regardless, I couldn't ignore the stream. There was something beyond this veil. I kept moving forward. Unless my ears were deceiving me, the scream belonged to a woman and had come from the right. I couldn't let myself think that. Or rather, I didn't want to think that. The unknown was scary. Personally, I found that principle made my life really easy. I had more than enough fear from those which were directly threatening my life. I really didn't want to have a fear of losing someone as well. Change your line of thought quick, Haruki. Solving this mystery might save someone. Two birds with one stone. I walked faster. Another stream. It was close. I realized I had to find a way to protect myself. I was unarmed, so I looked around for anything I could use as a weapon. I felt around to see if there were any branches or anything. Sadly, all I felt was grass. I went deeper and searched the ground itself. Soon I felt something hard. It was a rock. A moment of digging later, I found a hand. It was a bit smaller. I almost teared up at how useless it seemed, but it was better than nothing. I looked at the base of my feet and saw the grassy ground. I could easily move forward if I first checked the ground using my feet. And since I might have been close to the danger, I had to focus on what was ahead too. I recognized the danger and, if possible, get rid of it. I concentrated entirely on that and stepped forward. I couldn't hear the screams anymore. I could hear other things. A wet sound. The sound of something cracking. It filled my mind with countless things I didn't want to imagine. Even so, I kept walking forward. Until I saw it. Oh. My hypotheses were nothing but delusions. The truth was truly something you had to see for yourself. But why? Why was this thing so scary in spite of being true? It wasn't supposed to exist. It couldn't exist. After all, it was a wolf with a humanoid body. There's no such thing as werewolves. The next morning, in a paddy field in Fujiyoshi Yasumizu, 3rd block, someone discovered a thoroughly mangled corpse. The clothes nearby led the discoverers to conclude it was the traveler Fusaishi. He's still moving. Strangely enough, I could perceive this particular moment. Ayomibito. Purge him. So I... By Haruki-san. Was finished off by the girl. The feast begins. The last thing I heard... I'll hang the wolf. What's that? Raging loop. Unveiled arrival. I'll be right back. I got to get some more water. I have returned. I love it. I love it. I also hate it. Because there's some of these where I'm like, oh no. There's some of these choices where I think they've barred me off too soon. Because you were telling me about how I was locked into the wrong route or whatever. But I think that that was intentional by the developers. The route key is unlocked by this key, represented by the same number on the scenario chart. Bad ending number 2. So there's a bad ending number 1. Hint corner, yes. You've done it now, eh, Chief? Me? Don't mind me. I'm an insignificant interface character. Call me Sheep. This is a space between dreams that Haruki can't see. So feel free to kick back and relax. That said, you can't stay too long. I'm busy, so let's get down to business. As you'd expect of a hint corner, I'm here to give some helpful advice in your time of need. First, let's go through all the game explanations. Well, I did say you've done it now. Just before, you were actually fated to arrive here from the start. I mean, you were only given one choice. There should have been one below it, but it had a lock next to it, and you couldn't pick it. Oh, but just so you know, redoing the idiotic quiz is pointless. None of those choices will change a thing. He's lying. I think I was explaining to you back in the tutorial, but let's review Raging Loop's structure just in case. You will definitely die in this game. Because many choices are locked, and you need keys to unlock them. These kids are spread throughout the story, so you'll need to die to obtain most of them, making death unavoidable. He will retain his memory for the next time. This is a system to replicate that. So, if you get stuck, try dying. There are many keys lying within the story's many bad endings, but we can also obtain keys from surprising outcomes. Of course, it's possible to get all the keys and finish the game without seeing all the bad endings, but I'll leave that up to your playing style. As for Bad End 2, it's known as Toilet Man's Ending. You need key 2 to avoid it. That won't be a problem for next time. You have key 2 because you've died here. You can check the key 2 details from the key list on the menu. But now he knows from experience he'll die if he goes out at night, and that makes his new choice possible. You'll find more bad endings that you're forced to play through first in the future, so keep that in mind. Other times you can keep going onward for a long time without finding a key. Whenever you get a key, it's displayed with large red letters, so remember that part too. Saishu will be sent back to their starting point after this. In other words, to the scene at the start of the game with him on his bike. You can reread everything from the start if you'd like, but you're going to die dozens of times from now on, so it'd be a pain to read it each time. So once you get a grip of the situation, use the scenario chart to jump ahead. You can jump to any scene you've read before, whenever and wherever you want. It's really handy. For example, you could open the menu and press the chart button, go to Q, follow the stream in the dense mist even right now. Use the scenario chart to jump around, and that's the key to completing Raging Loop. Incidentally, this marks the end of number 2, Dense Mist. So the prologue is over. If you pick the choice that was unlocked this time, the main route, number 3, Yomi, will begin. Good luck. Next, if you come across a locked choice, look to the right side. You should see the number of keys you need to unlock it. The number appears on the scenario chart. Makes it clear what's locked and what key numbers you need. Handy system, eh? By the way, here's a tip. You won't be getting key 1 for a long time. You didn't miss anything, so relax and keep playing to your heart's content. That took a while, and I'm busy. Well, that's enough. Die another hearty death next time. Guess that was a dream, right? Do better next time. 1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3 sheep, blue sheep. All right. Forget it. We're going to do skip mode. We're speed running. Oh, by the way, I saw a person do a speed run of a visual novel. And it's so bad. Like, what they were doing is they were going for 100% achievements. But I don't know. I feel like if you're doing a speed run of the visual novel, you have to click every text box is the thing. You can't auto mode it. You can't skip it. You have to click everything. It's not speed running if you're not clicking on everything. I'm going to tell her she's a perv. You're right. It's like a porn manga collection. Now bring it on. Hold up. Could be getting tricked by Fox. I might be a ghost that to curse you to death. Or you're about to catch some bad disease. Let's open this path and see where it goes. Anyway, this girl was actually pretty sharp. She really had a way with words and knew how to capitalize on it. I also felt like she was implying I couldn't let my guard down just because I was a guy. I admitted she was pretty damn attractive, but felt like I'd have more fun just talking about lewd stuff than acting on it. Alright. Now we'll be able to skip here. Man, we're going back through the story really fast now, huh? Yeah. Got all that? I got it all. He's repairing his bike. Old man cried wolf. All right. Well, I don't know what to do here. We can hide in the outhouse, I guess. Okay, we know this is going to kill us. Should I click on this again to see if something different happens? Nah, I'm going to keep still. What was that? It sounded like someone's life was in danger. It meant something dangerous was nearby. Wait, I couldn't be rash. The world didn't have many things that logic could explain. Like the existence of murderers, but until I saw the source of the scream myself, it was nothing but a source of fear.
今から一晩ここに入って鍵をかけて絶対に物音一つ立てないで。
Don't make a sound. I reached to open the door, but something stayed my hand. My promise to Chiemi. But that scream just now, it was very real. It wasn't normal, and I had to assume the situation was dangerous, and maybe I couldn't help it if I went out. But that would mean endangering myself. I wasn't a saint, and I had no plans to rectify that. If there was something that could get me to walk out, it would be curiosity. My curiosity had won over many dangers thus far. But right now, it was weaker than my fear and risk of death. 'Cause I already knew. I don't know where these memories came from. It wasn't a premonition or a dream or anything else. My brain just recognized it as something I'd experienced. How? After all, I was still alive, and the time from those memories had yet to come. Was I a precog by chance? I'd never seen anything like that before coming here. And why did the memory come back to me at this particular moment? Regardless, that overwhelming fear, the pain and death that followed, were exactly what waited for me if I opened the door. I could feel more certain of that. The thoughts rendered me unable to move. Immobile, I stood still, completely certain that I'd lost my chance to leave. I wasn't childish enough to sneer at selfish decisions. Not to mention, I was upset at myself for not being able to act and simply run out because I was curious. I didn't feel saved till that moment. Suddenly, the door began to shake. This place had a handle on the outside. Someone was pulling on it hard. There was a lock, sure. There's only so much it could take before it broke. I prepared to pull it from inside, but
今から一晩ここに入って鍵をかけて絶対に物音一つ立てないで。
what would happen if I did? Whatever was outside would instantly know I was here. Even if I protected the door, the thing had lots of other ways of hurting me. All right. Prediction time. Prediction time with Ethereal. It's one of the journalists. They ate the food. They ate the food that was being offered by the villagers for their food journalism. And now one of them has an upset stomach and really needs to use this outhouse right now. They couldn't hold it anymore. And we're going to find them dead in the morning. That's my ethereal prediction. But what if I didn't know about me? What if it didn't know about me and just weirded it? I misread that. I gotta turn auto off. But what if it didn't know about me and was just weirded out by this randomly locked door? What if I didn't show a hint of fear to what it was doing? Would it just leave? I chose to just wait and see. Once again, someone pulled on the door, shaking the structure as a whole. I gulped down a scream and focused on the lock. If it broke, it'd be over for me. It's the guy. It's Hashimoto. That was what that memory told me. I was powerless back then, and even more so now. Assuming I tried to fight back, what would work. I'd heard that teeth were the hardest part of the human body, so maybe I could bite it. Yeah. I'd tear whatever it was apart with my teeth. I'd bite it to death. I gathered my wits in killing intent. Grinding my teeth, I glared at the door. How long had it been? The sounds suddenly stopped. For all I knew, it might have been a ploy to make me drop my guard. I'd slowly count to 500. If nothing happened in that time, I'd assume it went away. There were no screams or attacks after that. Silence improved my perception, but I heard strange noises every now and then. Breathing, growling, claws on the ground. Basically, a beastly presence. So that thing actually existed here. Was it what the mist brought? The wolf is coming. Do they all know about this? I couldn't learn anything in a place like this, and not knowing things scared me. Trusting my prescience or deja vu or whatever it was, I chose to stay quiet and wait. I'd find out everything in the morning. I just had to make it through the night and then talk to Chiemi. And if that was something I couldn't solve, I'd just run away. Thankfully, my bike repairs were going well, but I'd be leaving even if it didn't work. I'd walk to Fujiyoshi. Unlike Yasumitsu, they might have reliable means of transport. For now, I just had to stay awake and make it through the night. "5:13. I never liked seeing night gradually turn brighter as the morning arrives. It always made me feel like shit, like I'd done something harmful both for my body and as a human being in general. I found it natural to spend the night asleep and welcome the morning well rested with a smile. I never expected to feel so much gratitude for the morning light leaking through the door of an outhouse. Felt like the beasts had been out and about the whole night. Naturally, the high humidity here had made my clothes all wet and sticky. It was unpleasant, but even trying to move them made it more comfortable for myself, like a matter of life and death. Maybe it was a good thing I couldn't relax, but hell, it was exhausting in more ways than one. When I heard Chiemi shout my name in the distance, I was overcome with relief. I almost fell to my knees. If this turned out to be a trick and I opened the door to see some wolf with a chewed collar in its mouth, lunging for my throat, I just give up and let it have me at this point. With that in mind, I opened the door. I expected to see the same picturesque village I'd seen yesterday, so what I actually saw scared me. It shocked me pretty hard. What the hell was up with this thick mist? I couldn't see shit. It was like the entire area was consumed by it. Did someone line every inch of this place with dry ice or something? I could hear Chiemi, but not see her. I'm right here. I heard a wet sound and finally saw a silhouette within the mist. I'm stuck in the field. I walked up and saw exactly what I expected. A girl struggling to free one of her stuck legs stuck deep in the paddy field. Good luck. Hey, help me out. Oh, you can't do it yourself? Take my hand and out you go. I tugged her hand and braced my legs. That was enough to help her, but she lost her balance and... This is a wrestling move. You're actually pulling it off. Despite how close we were now, this wasn't the least bit romantic. Anyway, I'm glad you're okay. I definitely remembered a time where I was far from alright, though.
なんとかね。
I guess I am. I had no idea what this was about, so I didn't see any reason to mention it.
夜中獣みたい
I
な。
feel like there was some beast outside. Chiami's expression immediately darkened. She knew what I was referring to.
聞きたいことはたくさんあ
I
る。
have lots of questions right now. I'm more interested in the scream I heard than anything else.
それは
That was...
知ってるの？
She fell silent, clearly uncomfortable. It was pretty ominous.
どうせいつか嫌で
No delaying the inevitable. She gave me her hand. I took it but didn't feel the least bit excited about it. She led me down the path to the school dorm.
あ、フサイさん、無事だったんですね。
生還おめでとうベンジョマン
Congrats on surviving, Toilet Man.
君たちも無事。
Thanks, Warm Futon Man. You're okay too, who? Haru? Where is she?
大丈夫です。
She's fine. She suffered quite a shock, so she's taking a while to get dressed.
身支度に時間が。
そうか。皆さん、
I see.
より先に動いてたみたい。
So the rest of you have already gotten a move on.
耐えれたな寝てたの
How'd you even handle being in there anyways? Were you asleep? As if I could. I had no idea when I could get out. So I just waited until I heard Chiami's voice.
起きてたん
You
です。
were awake? You made it sound like that was weird.
あのトイレで寝てごらん。
You try sleeping in a toilet.
座れもし
Can't even sit, much less lie down.
そうじゃなく、そうか。
I really hate it when people just trail off like that. It makes me want to... way too curious.
ちなみに君たちはなぜここに？
Why are you guys here anyway?
と見張りだよ
Waiting for Haru-chan and keeping a lookout. A
状
lookout.
況がはっきりするまで
We're not letting anyone near the scene until the situation is clear. Scene? Someone actually...
ベンジョマンの胃袋の強度試し
Want to see? It's a good way to test your stomach.
あんまふざけるなよ。
Mochi, don't mess around like that.
見るよ。
I want to see. The invisible and unknown were way scarier than anything else to me. Not to mention, I could already smell something foul. I lightly moved them aside and walked up to the scene. There was a corpse. It was in such a horrible state that it was hard to recognize as human. I imagined this is what you would have gotten if you overturned a butcher's cart. That's how thoroughly the victim was disassembled. Also, the butcher would have had to deal with entrails. Enough of that comparison. Straining my eyes to look through the thick mist, I could actually make out some human parts within the vast sea of blood or mountain of death. Hands, torn clothing and hair, and a shoulder bag. How professional. She kept hold of her interviewing tools, even while running for her life. Didn't do her odds of survival any favors, though. Despite the body's state, it wasn't hard to tell that the victim was Hisako Mamiya. Mamiya Hisako. The small-time food journalist. That thing. Did it come to me once I was done murdering her? Once it was done murdering her?
これは
This is awful.
大丈夫吐き気とか
Feeling nauseous or anything? Chiemi was standing a short distance away, looking at nothing in particular.
吐くものもないし、
I got nothing to puke.
慣れてるんで。
I'm used to this.
春明さん、そっち系の学部だ
Is that what you were studying in college?
まあ一応、
You can say that.
すごい。検視とかできる？
Seriously, you can do autopsies and stuff?
学系ってのは、
When asked if they study medicine, I guess you can say that is what students from similar departments say to make themselves look good. But I did see a few pathology analyses. Oh. That's interesting that my YouTube stream is still going. Okay. Like, I'm not crazy, am I? That my YouTube stream is still going. Okay. Like, I'm not crazy, am I? I'm not crazy. Yeah, let me message Sush. YouTube feed is still up. Yeah, I'll let her know. Just in case she wasn't done. All right. I'll remember that for later. I crouched down and put my hands together, then grimacing at the harrowing reek of blood, innards, and especially digested food, I brought my face closer. Perhaps. Yeah, you're a VIP on Twitch, and Wrench over here. But it seems like for some reason at exactly 2 hours, OBS fails to connect to Twitch. That is true. No lurker dollars here. The other bad thing is, there's like an error message on my screen that I'm really tempted to click, but I'm not allowed to click it because the second I click it, all of this goes away. I just know all of this goes away. So, we're just gonna keep on going. Even if it wasn't much, this corpse wasn't split into pieces. The limbs were still connected, but they were folded in an unnatural way and looked really flattened. They were either crushed or bent with no regard for bone or muscle position. Then her whole body had been torn apart. Her innards were particularly badly damaged. The words "wolfed down" felt like the best way to put it. Ellipses. I found it hard to describe. This wasn't my job, so there wasn't much I could tell without touching it. This is way beyond anything I've ever seen before. I can barely tell what happened here. I had an urge to add that this seemed inhuman, but I kept from saying it. Anyway, we should call the police and leave it to the pros. I said it's something any good citizen would say, but for some reason, they didn't seem to agree. The police won't come. Why wouldn't they? They won't.
じゃあ避難しよ
それも
Then let's evacuate. That's not happening either.
う。バイクもあるし。
I have my bike and their van.
とにかく不採士さんで生存者は全員見つかった。
Anyway,
一度食堂に
we now have all the survivors, so let's go.
連れてくぞ。
We'll wait for Haru-chan.
お願い。春明さん行こう。
なあ、ちゃんと説明してく
Can I
れ。
get an explanation before we go?
精神的に無理。
Sorry, but I'm not in the mood for explanations right now. Figure it out for yourself. I was pretty irritated myself, but it must have been worse for them. They had info on what was happening here.
無神経だったよ。
That was insensitive of me. Chiemi said nothing